Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, let's dive right in. Today, we're unpacking an incredible story of absolute sporting triumph. But it's not just about shiny trophies and victory laps. We're talking about a rocky, deeply scandalous, and just utterly fascinating 150-year journey to get there. If you're looking for the ultimate blueprint on how a massive underdog rises to the absolute pinnacle of their field, well, you're definitely in the right place.
800. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the world record number of test wickets taken by the legendary Sri Lankan spin bowler Muttiah Muralitharan between 1992 and 2010. 800. To put that into perspective, it's a monumental, almost untouchable athletic achievement. It requires decades of sustained, superhuman excellence at the highest possible level of the sport.
But here's the thing. Muralitharan's crazy individual record is really just a symptom of a much larger phenomenon. Consider that this exact same island nation completely captured the 1996 Cricket World Cup, and then followed it up by winning the 2014 World 2020. So the big question we're answering today is figuring out exactly how a former colonial outpost transformed itself into this unstoppable, record-breaking global force.
Section 1. Colonial Roots and Stopover Matches.
To really grasp their meteoric rise, we actually have to rewind all the way to the 19th century. Cricket was first introduced to the island, which was then called Ceylon, by the British. The very first recorded mention of a match actually popped up in the Colombo Journal back in 1832. And for decades, the island was essentially just a convenient geographical stopover for English and Australian teams making that massive sea voyage to play each other. Local Ceylonese players were initially just brought in to make up the numbers against European settlers. In fact, in 1882, English captain Ivo Bly brought his team through and played an odds game. Get this, 18 locals played against 11 Europeans, because apparently the English thought they needed a massive 7-man handicap just to make it a fair fight. But by 1922, things started getting a lot more serious with the founding of the Ceylon Cricket Association.
Section 2. Earning respect on the pitch.
Because, well, the local talent definitely wasn't going to just sit around as extras for long. They quickly started proving that their standard of play vastly exceeded the expectations of the European colonizers. In 1926, they really proved their worth in Ceylon's first-ever first-class match. And in cricket terms, a first-class match is a highly prestigious, top-tier domestic game. A native Ceylonese team, organized by cricket administrator Dr. John Rockwood, went toe-to-toe against a visiting Bombay team. And keep in mind, this Bombay squad included the legendary Indian test batsman C.K. Naidu. The result? The Ceylon XI defeated Bombay easily by 7 wickets. They were sending a really loud and clear message: we belong here.
Now, what's genuinely staggering here is the leap in quality over a relatively short period of time. After World War II, Ceylon was definitely still struggling against top-tier international talent. In 1949, they were completely outmatched by visiting Pakistan and West Indies teams that featured absolute giants of the game, guys like Everton Weekes and Clyde Walcott. But, flash forward just 15 years later, in the 1964-65 season, Ceylon literally shocked the cricket world by defeating a full Indian team on Indian soil by 4 wickets. This was a monumental milestone. It was their very first international victory.
Section 3. The Cancelled Tour Scandal.
So riding high on that historic victory over India, the nation's cricket board plotted their elevation to official test status, which is the absolute highest level of international cricket. But instead of a triumphant promotion, they hit rock bottom. The plan was incredibly ambitious. In 1968, they organized a massive 19-match tour of England. This was basically going to be their grand audition. The schedule included 9 first-class matches against county teams and a highly prestigious match at Lord's against the MCC. If you aren't a massive cricket fan, just know that the MCC and Lord's are essentially the historical headquarters and the ultimate gatekeepers of world cricket. If Ceylon performed well here, test status was surely theirs.
But wow, did the whole thing spectacularly implode. It completely collapsed in scandal. First, the cricket board had basically zero funds and actually had to beg for private donations. Then, the government stepped in, refusing to release vital foreign exchange money for the trip. But the absolute final straw, and this is truly bizarre, was the selection of the team itself. 2 of the official team selectors, Herbert Fernando and Donsiri Weerasinghe, literally picked themselves to play on the tour. You can't make this up. Another selector, Chandra Shafter, resigned in sheer disgust over this. The resulting public uproar was so intense that the entire 19-match tour was canceled just days before the team was scheduled to depart. It was a humiliating, totally self-inflicted disaster.
Section 4. The rise to Test status.
Yet, despite that embarrassing all-is-lost moment in 1968, the nation, which officially changed its name from Ceylon to Sri Lanka in 1972, absolutely refused to give up on their international dreams. The turnaround over the next few years is incredible. At the inaugural 1975 Cricket World Cup, Sri Lanka made an appearance, sure, but they were entirely crushed by the West Indies, bowled out for a humiliating 86 runs. But they absorbed those painful lessons. They rallied, performed brilliantly internationally, and won the 1979 ICC trophy. Finally, the governing body could no longer ignore them. On July 21, 1981, Sri Lanka was officially awarded full member status, becoming the 8th test-playing nation in the world.
Section 5. Domestic Foundations.
Okay, so how do you actually pull off that kind of turnaround? How do you go from a canceled tour and a World Cup humiliation to joining the absolute elite of the sport? The secret sauce was a highly structured youth development program created by the CCA. They didn't just cross their fingers and hope for a generational talent to magically appear out of thin air. They built a robust, sustainable system. This youth program fed directly into a fierce domestic circuit. Their main domestic competition, the Premier Trophy, actually gained official first-class status by 1988. This meant that their young players were being aggressively tested in high-pressure, elite local matches way before they ever put on the national jersey.
And the numbers are staggering. When you look closely at the domestic tables, you can literally track the emergence of their golden era stars. Take Marvin Adepotu in 1994, scoring over 1,300 runs with a jaw-dropping average of exactly 93. Or Mahela Jayawardene a few years later, casually racking up over 1,400 runs with a towering average of over 89. These legendary batsmen were putting up massive run totals locally before they went on to dominate international bowling attacks. The domestic structure was working perfectly to forge them for the global stage.
And you know, the bowling data tells the exact same story of local dominance translating into international greatness. Remember the man we mentioned at the very start of our explainer? Mudia Muralitharan. In the 2001 to 2002 domestic season, he took 87 wickets at an astonishingly low average of just 13.47. A few years later, you got a Jonathan Mendes taking 68 wickets at a mind-bending average of 10.51. This absolutely proves that these legendary international wicket-takers were thoroughly forged in the intense fires of Sri Lanka's domestic competitions. They earned their stripes and perfected their craft at home first.
Section 6. Global Triumphs.
All of this incredible domestic infrastructure, the youth programs, the high-level club matches, it perfectly set the stage for Sri Lanka's modern dominance. The island that once merely served as a convenient place for passing ships to stretch their legs? Yeah, it evolved to host its own official test matches by 1982. But they weren't just happy to participate, they wanted to conquer. Driven by that relentless talent developed in their domestic leagues, Sri Lanka achieved the ultimate dream by lifting the Cricket World Cup in 1996, and later proved they could adapt to the modern era by winning the World 2020 in 2014.
Which really leaves us with this final fascinating thought to chew on. Consider the sheer scale of their 150-year journey. They went from colonial cast-offs making up numbers on the pitch to enduring financial ruin and a truly crazy self-inflicted selection scandal in 1968 to eventually holding world records and the most coveted trophies in the entire sport. Sri Lanka's rise is an absolute masterclass in resilience and structured development. Has any other sporting underdog ever engineered such a perfect rise? Think about that for a bit, and let the incredible journey of Sri Lankan cricket inspire whatever challenges you are tackling today. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.